Some say Chinese is one of the most difficult languages in the world, and learning it is almost impossible.
So learning Chinese, the most difficult thing.
非常非常非常非常非常难
So I'm sort of tone deaf. I can't really hear them.
I think the cultural mindset is the biggest complication for
The
us.
grammar.
知吃思吃都还难
It's just complicated. So much.
Only because you're not learning it in the right way. Why not try Takeaway Chinese, where you can take some Chinese away and experience progress day by day. Takeaway Chinese, we will promise you a difference.
你好，欢迎收听随行汉语 Welcome to Takeaway Chinese. I'm your host Niu Honglin, joined by the handsome and knowledgeable Carl Benjaminson and the beautiful and brilliant Jessica Luo. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello.
I feel it's not fair that Jessica has a Chinese name and you don't. I mean, family name.
That's true. I have a really boring Chinese name. It was nothing particularly creative, but by the time I came up with something more interesting, I'd had my boring name for so long.
So in the future,
I kind of got stuck with it.
I can call you Carl Benjie, isn't that right?
Or just Benjie.
Benjie, that works. I can do that too. But even though you guys don't, well, not both of you guys have great, interesting, funny Chinese names, I'm pretty sure you have come up, well, you have met with some dishes that have funny names.
Leg of cowboy was one that I saw before, which
Leg
we
of
will.
cowboy. Huh.
And I've got to say, when I did see husband and wife lung slice,
Yeah, that was
on
a
the
scary
menu,
one.
that was not really one that was particularly tempting.
Yeah, my favorite one was steamed lion head. When I was a kid, I was so disappointed when I see the little meatball and realize it was not real lion head.
But one dish that would be nice to talk about in the show, which is my personal favourite in Chinese cuisine, is pockmarked grandmother's tofu, which is tastier than it sounds.
So I think, as smart as you are, you must know that the theme of today would be Chinese dishes. And it is a huge topic because we have different names for the dishes, we have different category of food, and we have so many different delicate flavors. So this is going to be a very, very interesting episode. And for our dear listeners, if you're interested in Chinese culture and you want to get to grips with the Chinese language, then this is the show for you. Stick with us for 30 minutes a day and you soon see the rewards. And for more fun Chinese learning, follow our Facebook page, CRI Learn Chinese, a page that you can also check us out there by videos and live streaming. But now, let's provide you with some free Chinese for takeaway.
Chinese 101, a promise beyond the basics.
你想好点什么了吗？
看点评，这家店的麻婆豆腐和口水鸡做得不错。
你想吃什么主食呢？
担担面吧。This is the conversation you guys will have with a friend when you're in a restaurant and trying to decide what to order. And there is actually a really good advice, that is to 看点评. But before jumping into that, we can start with the first sentence. 你想好点什么了吗？
Have you decided which dishes you'd like to order?
So 你想好点什么了吗？想好 is, I think it's the first time we've come across this.
Yeah, I think so, which is really nice to learn, right?
So we've come across 想 before, so wish, and 好 meaning good. So it's, have you decided what you want? Basically.
Exactly. So 好 here actually also suggests the it's kind of like suggests this should happen in the past time. You have already decided, you have already thought about or made your decision. 你想好了. If I say 我想好了, it actually means I have made up my mind. 你想好点什么了吗? And here 点 stands for 点菜, order. And then the person said 看点评，这家店的麻婆豆腐和口水鸡做得不错。
The comment suggests that mapo tofu and steamed chicken with chili sauce are good.
So 点评 here is also a new word. Can you guys guess? Because we know 点 is point and 评 stands for 评价. So it would be reveal or comment.
I actually thought dianping was a kind of app on your phone.
It stands for a kind of app because there is a commonly used app in China that is called 大众点评. 大众 stands for the people. And 点评 actually means to give a comment. But 点评 is the kind of comment you give. You don't give everything a comment. You just select one because 点 also means point. So you point at the ones that you'd like to give comment to.
So this is basically like reviews.
Yes, reviews, and kind of like Yelp. But here, actually, 点评 can also mean that I have checked some reviews, I've checked the comment online. It does not necessarily have to come from only that one app.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because in this situation, when I heard this sentence, I actually thought they said, look at the app. Instead of here, they're actually saying, look at the comments.
Exactly. So, 看点评, we've looked at the comments and we found out that 这家店的麻婆豆腐和口水鸡做得不错. 麻婆豆腐 and 口水鸡 are the names of the dishes. And here, 这家店 refers to this shop or this restaurant. 店 is actually shop, but here it stands for 饭店, so restaurant. 做得不错.
做得不错, 做 means to make or do. 不错 means, actually it translates as not bad, but I think it comes off as pretty good.
Yes.
Instead of not bad. Because when I say not bad in English, I think it's not great,
but not
terrible,
bad. Yeah.
but not bad. But in Chinese, it actually means pretty good.
So one of the first things you'll learn when you start Chinese lessons is you say 很好. If something's good, then you come to China and realize no one says that. They always say it's not bad.
不错,
So,
不错, yes.
So 做得不错 means actually to prepare it pretty well.
Yes, and part A said, 你想吃什么主食呢?
So how about the main food or staple food?
Yeah, 主食 here is a tricky one because in Chinese, when we say 主食, 主 is main and 食 stands for 食物, food. So the main food are the kind of food that Chinese people consider that will make you feel full or give you enough energy. So if you think about it, it won't be meat. It won't be vegetable. It is the kind of food that, for example, rice, noodles, and also dumpling,
bread,
that kind of food. But I know staple food in English actually means the plant.
Yeah, you're normally talking about the grains rather than the actual food product.
Yes.
Right, or whatever food is most common. So it could also mean bread.
Yeah. So, and also in English, if we're talking about main dish, 主菜, that would suggest maybe the meat, lobster, or
main course.
Main course, yes, 主菜. So that's different. Just keep in mind 主食. If we're talking about 主食, that's not the grain. That's just the real dish here. The 面条, or like the answer here, 担担面. That's also considered a main food. 主食.
Yeah, because it's all kind of these starchy carbohydrates.
Yes.
And this really goes to a cultural point in China, which is, I think in the West, you order your own dish, right? When you go to a restaurant, everyone orders by themselves, and so that meal should be complete with a meat, a vegetable, and some sort of starch, like bread or noodles. Whereas in China, you order the dishes together, and it's family style, so everyone gets the dishes, but then everyone has their own starch.
Yes.
So like noodles or rice or mantou, which is steamed bread.
Steamed bread, yes.
Are the most common ones, I think.
And I think that also, that tradition changes a little bit how people order food here. So I found it's a lot more common that if someone's more familiar with the restaurant, for example, than other people, they will take charge of ordering because you've got so many choices in so many different restaurants. You want to get a nice balance between fried stuff or steamed stuff or spicy stuff. So if you get one person to be the person responsible for ordering, you can end up having a better meal.
Or that person can be very skillful and give you a really great table of food with great variety. That could happen as well. So that is why the person here asked the question, 你想吃什么主食呢? Because 主食 is, first of all, kind of a big deal, and also something that you want to order for yourself specifically. So 你想吃, we know, is do you want to eat 什么? What kind of 主食, staple food? And the answer is 担担面.
So I'd like to eat dan dan noodle.
So, yeah, 担担面 here is also a funny one. It's a name for a certain kind of dish. And to be completely honest, I have never looked into the reason why 担担面 is called 担担面. And not long ago, I thought 担担面 only refers to the kind of cold noodle. But it turns out there are hot 担担面 as well. So, so you can only remember it as a name of a certain kind of noodle.
And that's the one point I feel like is a lot of dishes have the same name, but depending on where you go in China, it'll be prepared a little bit differently, right?
Yes. So the conversation is not as difficult as we assumed. Do you guys think you can try it a little bit?
你想好点什么了吗？
看点评，这家店的麻婆豆腐和口水鸡做得不错。
你想吃什么主食呢？
担担面吧。
That was actually pretty nice. And you guys nailed the 麻婆豆腐 and 口水鸡 part. A little bit overpronounced, but it's always a good thing when you're learning another language, if you're being articulate enough.
I have to say that caught me off guard, the 什么了吗?
Exactly,
right?
that's a hard one.
Yeah, so 你想好点什么了吗? Can you just read it one more time for us?
你想好点什么了吗?
你想好点什么了吗?
Exactly. Well, you are listening to Takeaway Chinese with myself, Niu Honglin, Jessica, and Carl. We would love to hear from you. Send us your thoughts via email to learnchinese@cri.com.cn. Coming up next, let's talk about the menu in a Chinese restaurant. Don't go away, so you will take some Chinese away.
Language tips. All you need to learn about Chinese culture and have fun.
Welcome back to Takeaway Chinese. I'm Niu Honglin, joined by Carl and Jessica. So, we've talked a little bit about ordering in Chinese restaurant already. What are you guys' favorite dish?
For sure, Kung Pao Chicken.
Okay. That's not surprising, actually.
No, I think every foreigner who comes to China, because especially where I come from in the US, Kung Pao Chicken is so different and not that great. Because I think people from Guangdong brought it into America, and then first of all, it's a Sichuan dish, right? And then it was changed into being more Americanized. And so
more
throughout,
sweet.
Yeah, more sweet. But throughout the years, it changed so much. When you come to China and you actually try Kung Pao Chicken, it is so good. And also, I really like the huajiao. So huajiao is the numbing berries, I suppose, or black.
Yeah, it's like Sichuan pepper.
Sichuan pepper is technically the correct, but they're these little small berries that if you eat too many of them, it makes you feel like you just came out from the dentist because you cannot feel your mouth. So I personally love it.
They're really, really nice. And I think they match really well with chili in Sichuan cuisine.
辣椒. Because 辣椒 and 麻椒 are two different things. And in Sichuan, I think the character for 川菜, which is the cuisine from Sichuan province or that area, actually the character was that 麻, that's the numbing feeling from 麻椒 or 花椒, and 辣, that is the spicy kind of taste from 辣椒, the pepper.
And so that's how you get like mala cuisine.
Exactly.
And it's really widespread in Sichuanese cuisine, and even beyond. Last year, M&M's created Ma-La peanut M&M's, which were terrible, but I could not stop eating them because they were so weird.
Yes, that's true. And that's about some dish names. And I think Carl's favorite dish is 麻婆豆腐, isn't it?
麻婆豆腐 or 水煮鱼.
水煮鱼.
So it's like fish that's poached in oil with lots of chili and Sichuan pepper.
Yes, and 煮 actually is boil. If you take that character, that's boil. And 水 is water, but don't mistakenly think that 水煮鱼里都是水. So 水煮鱼里没有太多水，主要是辣油和辣椒.
Very, very spicy.
Very spicy. And that's some dish names. We also have some funny names for dishes. The one we mentioned earlier about the 红烧狮子头 or 狮子头 actually is lion head, but that actually was talking about meatballs, and about 夫妻肺片. the husband and wife
lung slice.
Lung slice. That's because the dish was invented by a couple. So that's husband and wife. The husband and the wife created the lung slice. So that's how the dish was named.
And it doesn't necessarily have lung in it, is the other thing. It sometimes has things like tripe.
Oh yeah, that's also true. And about the cowboy leg.
The leg of cowboy.
The leg of cowboy.
I think it's funny because it's actually just the leg of cow, right?
And I think it's possible that it's a dish called 牛仔骨. So 牛仔 was cowboy and 骨 was bone. So 骨头 bone. But 牛仔骨 actually is a part. It's the name of a specific part on a specific type of steak. So if you think of 牛仔骨 as one word, it works out. But if you think of 牛仔 as a word, that is the cowboy.
Yes, and so sometimes there are these mistranslations, but others like the husband and wife lung slice, that's literally the name. But when you translate into English, sometimes it just doesn't work.
And just before the Olympics in Beijing in 2008, the Beijing government actually put together a list of 2,000 Chinese dishes and gave them standardized English names and sent that to a lot of hotels and restaurants so that when people came, they wouldn't be a little bit terrified by the mistranslated Chinese menu.
Try to avoid people being scared by the lungs of a husband and a wife, huh? So, we've talked a little bit about the dish names. We don't want to go too deep into it because there are just so many dish names. And if you really want to make a good order, you need to balance between the veggie and the meat, the cold dish and the hot dish. And sometimes you need to also make sure that everybody has some stomach stuffers, have some carbs, and you need to make sure there is at least one soup, 汤, which is also very important for Chinese people. So let's think about them one by one. So for the staple food, or in Chinese, 主食 here, we have 米 stands for rice. But the thing is, since I am from the north part of China, so I say 米, but most people from the southern part of China, they say 饭. So 米饭 actually was the rice, but for me, 米 is just 米, the rice. But for some people, 米 would refer to the rice that has not been made into food yet.
So just for
raw
those
one.
Chinese learners out there who may not be as distinctive, if you just say 米饭,
that works.
That works.
And also 面条, that's noodle, or just 面. And we also have bread, 面包, like Jessica has said, and 饺子, dumpling.
饺子 dumplings, which can also be confusing because sometimes they're called 水.
Oh, 水饺. You're thinking about 水饺.
水饺,
yes.
Which is similar characters to sleep, which we have... no, actually, the characters are not the same at all, but the pronunciation is similar.
Yes.
And one of the other big staple foods, I think particularly in the north, is bing.
Bing.
So although it's got the same, it means cake, it doesn't mean like a sweet cake. It's often something with like chives or some other vegetables, and it can be quite heavy.
Yes, yes. And it is a really popular staple food in some northern part of China as well.
That's funny that I did not know that bing actually meant cake. I thought it just meant circle.
It meant cake because if you think about it, moon cake is 月饼. Yeah, so cake.
It's a cake.
Bing. Yes.
When I first came to China, does anybody out there like to play mahjong? Because actually when you play mahjong, they have bing is the circle. So that's how I learned it.
Yes.
Learning wrong. So I'm glad we can be corrected.
So yeah, that's the staple food part. And of course, we also eat a lot of meat. And for meat, we have 肉. 肉 is the Chinese character for meat. 肉. And we have, for example, 鸡肉, that's chicken. Or 鱼肉, that's fish. So basically you put out the name of that animal and add 肉 there. You don't need because I know in English, if you're talking about beef, you have a word beef. But beef was actually the meat for cow or ox, 牛. But in Chinese, you can just say 牛肉, and that's beef. So fairly simple. So that's the meat part. And also, we'd like to, when we order in a Chinese restaurant, we also want to have something green, 绿色蔬菜. 蔬菜 is vegetable.
Although you do sometimes find that if you're ordering vegetable dishes, they often have meat in them.
Yeah, that too.
So, for example, a really common one, again, from Sichuan, which you might have realized is my favorite place for cuisine, they've got 干煸四季豆.
干煸四季豆.
So it's like fried beans with chili and usually a bit of pickle, but that sometimes has meat in it as well.
Yes, because in a meat lover's heart, that kind of dish is totally already a vegetable because the meat in it is just to season the dish, to give it a flavor. It does not count. And 干煸 is the kind of method you use to force the water out of that vegetable and give it a rather different kind of texture. It tastes really good.
So you call it dry frying.
Dry
so
frying,
it's frying
yes.
things
干煸.
without batter on them.
Yes, and 干 here is dry, and 煸 is the special kind of way to fry it. So that's the veggie part. And of course, when it comes to veggie, we have 青菜, standing for the green vegetables, and 菜 is vegetable. So 青菜 is like a very light kind of vegetable, and there are 豆类. 豆 is beans. And there are sometimes also 菇类, that's mushroom, 蘑菇, mushroom, 蘑菇. So that's the veggie part. And like I said, 汤 is also very important, soup. 汤.
And I find that interesting because usually tang, unlike in the West where they serve it at the beginning of the meal, it's usually served at the end in China, right?
Yes.
Because it's also considered a kind of main food that makes a meal complete.
Yes, and sometimes we believe your stomach is like a bottle, and if you stuff the bottle with big things, at the end you're gonna give it a little bit watery thing to, fill all the vacancy. 溜溜缝. That's what sometimes Chinese people say.
Which I love, but I used to fill this vacancy with ice cream, so...
Yeah, that's nice too. Oh, we sometimes also have 甜点 or 甜品. That's the dessert. 甜品. I know I dropped in a lot of complicated Chinese words, but just in a way so that you guys can have an idea what to order in a Chinese restaurant. And remember that even though we don't have 分餐制, which means everybody order their own dish, is also sometimes a good thing because you can have a taste of a little bit everything, and you can have a balanced diet by having cold and hot meat and veggie. And now we have a public chopsticks. We call it 公筷. 公 stands for 公用, so public. 筷 stands for 筷子 chopstick. So a 公筷 would make it also very clean and safe. So have fun ordering in a Chinese restaurant, and I believe once you're here, once you fall in love with Chinese food, you just don't want to go back. Like our dear co-host here, sitting here.
That's very true. I love Chinese food, and I love when people ask me, oh, have you gotten used to Chinese food yet? And I can say, 我习惯了. I have gotten used to it, but not only gotten used to it, 我爱中餐, 我爱吃中餐. So I love eating Chinese food.
And I've got to admit, I can only cook Chinese food. I cannot bake a cake, I cannot roast chicken, I cannot cook any Western style food, but I can cook Chinese food, I think, quite well.
Yes.